So this afternoon, what we're gonna do is, here's the agenda. Let me just go in presentation mode, just so that we level set on what else we're going to do. So we touched on VDW. That was this section. So we're gonna take another 30 minutes now to talk about customer immersion experience, and then another 30 minutes to talk about value calculator. Again, we'll keep it fluid depending on the conversation. So I trust that there's going to be more stuff to ask, and then we're going to have a break, and then we're going to talk about IT roadmap, and last but not least, any other programs that we're running, we'll make sure that we touch on it as well. You know, I do have to say, though, one thing is, note the time that it is for me right now. It's becoming a little bit harder, but it'll be good. So let's talk about customer immersion experience, everybody. I know that before the break, somebody was asking about demos. For those of you who've used Microsoft demos, I felt like it got louder after the break. Did it get louder, or was this me? I think someone messed with your audio. Somebody messed with my audio. Somebody messed with me, but that's okay. I think this is much better. So somebody asked about demos. We're going to touch on what CIE is. Very specifically, we're going to talk about virtual CIE. So for those of you who've done customer immersion experience with us before, you've probably seen a couple different ways. Again, as I mentioned before the break, you could do it here in MTC, Microsoft Technology Center. You could do it directly on the customer site. Typically, what you would do in a customer immersion experience is a couple things. One, you have to get the devices, right? So it could be a mix of Surface Pro 3, Pro 4, books, Lenovo's, whatever it is. And the second thing is you're going to have to worry about the imaging part of it as well. You're going to have to make sure to install the images and also erase the images afterwards. That's very, very time consuming. So that was one of the biggest feedback from Microsoft that we got. We needed to condense that format, and we needed to make sure that people have an easier way to get into CIE if they want to. And therefore, we created something called virtual CIE. So virtual CIE is everything that you would expect in a traditional CIE, but you can get a virtual tenant literally within about 5 minutes of your time. So that, compared to your traditional way of thinking about it, for those of you who've done it, takes about 2 hours. So you've condensed, and 2 hours, that's if there's no failure rate. So that 5 minute is really a huge value proposition that we have. So in order for you to get a CIE, remember what we did. When you click on create package, you can, one of the buttons that you can click on, I'm not gonna create another one, but one of the buttons that you can click on is CIE. This is exactly how you would do it. This is exactly how I would do it. Let me close it out. And once your package is right here, you can go ahead and click on CIE. Again, this part you can follow me. One of the things that you can do is schedule, or you can launch now. Now for this session, I'm gonna go ahead and launch now. It does say that if you launch CIE now, the virtual session will only be available for 24 hours. That is a blatant lie that we put out there. It actually lasts for 4 calendar days. There's a couple different reasons why we put 24 hours, but the biggest one that we just want you to be cognizant of is because this is on demand. So the moment you need it, we can get you a virtual tenant right then and there. There is cost, not to you, but cost occur to us. So we just wanted to make sure that people understand that if you're really spinning up a tenant that you need it now, sure, you can get it, but we put that little note there to kind of warn you, but know that you have 4 days that you can play around with the tenant. So those of you who want to get a tenant, all you have to do is click on launch, and this little thing is going to keep circulating until it gets to a next page, which will show up. The whole process, as I said, will take about 5 minutes. Not too long, really, when we think about a traditional CIE versus this. So again, you start to see some of the information popping up, and you see this little circular button that keeps going. As it goes, let me talk about some of the things you're gonna see right here. There you go, that finishes. So here, you're gonna see 3 different tabs: info, personas, and guides. In the info tab, you're gonna see a couple things that's important. Right here, admin password, that is one important thing. For those of you who need to go into a place within Microsoft 365 that requires admin password, here is the admin password. So you can log in as an admin if you want to. Places such as Windows Intune, you would need to log in as an admin. I believe if you want to log into Azure portal, you also have to log in as an admin so that you can create, say, Azure Information Protection, AIP. You can do so in a virtual CIE, but you do need to be cognizant of potentially needing the admin password. And of course, that password is only available to you, not for the customers. The other thing that you should know is right here is the direct URL that I'll click on right now. As it loads, let me tell you a little bit about it. In this direct URL, this is the URL that you send to the customer. So depending on where your customer is at, it could be remote, it could be in person, that's also fine. Here's the URL that you would send to the customers. As this loads, what they're going to see, what the customer is going to see is the same 20 personas that you're going to be able to see. I'll flip back to the facilitator, so we're now as facilitators. I'll flip back to that page. But as it loads, one of the things that it's going to ask you is the name and the email address, right? So by having that information, which is pretty easy to get, you can then select any of the 20 personas that I'll just quickly scroll down. That you can see here. Again, it's the same 20 personas that the customers get just as you do. Now, keep in mind, a couple of things here is, this is a first come, first serve type of tenant. So any of the personas, once it's logged in, you cannot log in again. So, I mean, not log in, you cannot have duplicate person coming in at the same time. So keep that in mind, but that also means that you can only have 20 people in an instance at any given time. Typically, we see about 7 to 8 is the magic number that people do a virtual CIE with. Too big of a group, it's harder to control. Too narrow of a group, it becomes less fun almost. So 7 to 8 is sort of that number that we're looking for. Doesn't mean that you can't do it more or less. But that is the customer's view, and all the customers have to do is click on select or any of the personas and click on start VM. I'm not going to start this one because I want to do from the facilitator's point of view, but that's all they have to do. Click on start VM. They can then connect into a virtual instance. Now let me go back to what you as a facilitator would see. So again, this is the direct URL that you would send to the customer. Now for you though, you would go to personas. So again, same 20 personas that you're going to see. So I urge you to think about, if you're going to be running a virtual CIE, coming here, start your VM and actually log in first before you send the information to the customer so that you at least have the tenant that you want. Is there a difference between all 20? Very, very little difference between, there's just different names, different, obviously different pictures. There's some contents in there that is a little bit different, but by all intents and purposes, they're all going to be working exactly the same way. So if you wanted to be Karen Berg, all you have to do is click on that name and click on start VM, and that's all it is. It does say that your VM is spinning up. This could take up to 5 minutes. Usually you should get it between 2 to 3 minutes, which also means it's the most awkward 2 to 3 minutes that you're gonna wait if you're gonna be doing this in front of a customer, which also means you should do this beforehand, right? So if you know you're gonna have a customer meeting in, say, well, it's not 4:54, but 1 o'clock, right? So do it an hour before, so at least you're in, right? It'll work. I've actually, if you take a look at this, I cheated a little bit before. During the lunch break, I've already gotten one in, so I don't have to make you guys wait. But that is typically the best practice that we've seen. Once it loads, you're going to see that this button turns blue. And it's going to ask you a couple things when you actually click connect. One of the things it's going to ask you is this password as you log in. The login process is about a 3-step process. It's actually very simple, and once you see it, it becomes self-explanatory. Do you want to open? Do you want to connect? Yes, yes, yes. But one of the things that it does ask you is this password, and you do have to type in that pass at word 1. It's the same no matter what persona you use. It's the same no matter if it's customers or not. So everybody is using the same pass at word 1 as the password, unless you're logging in as an admin. Then you need the admin password, which is in the info tab that you can get. Sound good? So let's go in, and I'm not gonna when we come back out, it'll turn blue, and I'll show you how it is. But once you connect, what you're going to get to is, let me just minimize. So now you can see I am in the remote desktop. So this is an RDP, it's a virtual machine, and again, if your customer is in the same instance with you, then you guys can actually start co-authoring, co-edit, and play with the same tools. They will see their own screen, and we will see our screen as well. But you can, of course, do screen shares if you want to. I don't need to update. But here is what we call a full-bodied experience. In this build, you can go in and pretty much use everything that you want to think about for Microsoft 365. At this point, I do want to mention the reason we are running a customer immersion experience really ought to be because you now have done some sort of a discussion with the customer, right? Using the value discovery workshop, you sort of understand what are some of the business challenges that they're going through right now. And therefore, by now using a virtual CIE or CIE in general, now you can show them how you can help solve their business challenges. Right, so in here, you can open up Outlook if you want to. I'm logged in as Karen Berg, so you can see Karen Berg already has a bunch of unread mails. She should probably get to it, but she doesn't have to, right? There's also additional things in here that you can play around with. I can open up Skype for Business as well. I can open up Skype for Business. And again, right now, nobody is online because nobody else is logged in as any of the other personas. But had it been one of the customers who's logging in as Amy Albers, then Amy Albers would turn green, and of course, then you guys can start doing any of the chats through IMs, that sort of thing. So again, it's very, very cool to start showing them some of the things that's in here. This also goes back to the point on what is the difference between this and demos, right? Demos.microsoft.com. One of the key benefits here is that you get to play in the same sandbox with your customer. It really becomes real when the customer can actually feel and see the things right there on their own screen. Be in that same sandbox is a really critical key piece of the components of virtual CIE. Demos doesn't allow you to do that, but demos can allow you to customize your tenants quite easily as well. So pros and cons, depending on what it is that you're trying to do, there's definitely benefits and downsides to each one of them. So depending on that, you might want to think about which one to run. I would always be positioning virtual CIE as the #1 thing you should go to. It just becomes so much more real and so much more immersive when the customers can actually be in the same place as you. So you can open up Edge. You can go into our Office 365 applications. Anything here is fair game. You can open up Yammer. You can go to OneDrive. Within OneDrive, you're going to see already contents here. So one of the things that you're going to see that's going to be different a little bit among the 20 personas are the contents here. These are pre-built content. There's nothing else you have to do with it. Things that would work in Power BI will work in Power BI. So you can get into Power BI. You can start sharing these with Allison if she's online, or Amy if she's online. I'm using Amy as an example. But you can start sharing the document as a cloud file, right? And you can co-edit stuff together. And all of this will work, and all of this will work on the other machine. Now, if Amy were online, when Amy goes into her OneDrive, it would be a set of different contents there, of course. So these are all things that you could demonstrate if you want to. There's also other things like security and compliance portal that you can go in. You can create your own data loss prevention policy as well, so you can start to show the security piece of it. This is what we mean by it's a full-bodied experience, allowing the customers to come in and take a look at everything that you can see, and also start to play around some of the other tools like co-authoring together with the customers. That becomes very, very real when it comes to virtual CIE. Yes?
How quickly does it get updated with things like Office updates?
I'll repeat it. How quickly does it get updated? We try to aim to update as fast as we can. We do. With that said, there's always going to be a lag behind. But hopefully, what you're going to notice is when you start to play around with the tools, is that it doesn't lag too far behind. That is creating more problems for you than actually unblocking the deal. Again, keep in mind that if you're talking to BDMs, chances are most of the things in here, it's going to be okay in terms of demonstrating that. But if you're talking to an IT person, this would be a little bit different, right? Because now you would be thinking more along the lines of what they would be thinking about, and which does get a little bit more technical, which does require you to have a little bit of updated versions of CIEs as well. Yes?
So for the, it would all be release candidate stuff. It's not, there's no preview things on it. So for instance, the AIP toolbar, the preview one is a lot better because it lets you do the inline categorization rather than doing it on the save. But you wouldn't have the preview version on here.
You would not have the preview version on here. You would not have the preview version on here. Yep. So there is, by the way, there's one other thing that I do want to point out. There is something called a CIE Bot. Let's see if it works. So the CIE Bot is something that we put in place in thinking about how do you drive scenario discussion, right? So again, coming back to business scenarios, driving it with the BDMs, how do you have those conversations with the BDMs? What we did is with the 18 business scenarios, we went through and created a document and really a bot after that to say, hey, this is the storyline that we want you to go through if you're talking about a specific scenario. So for instance, I can type in pillars, and what that's going to do is show me the different pillars within Microsoft 365. So you're going to see, I think, collaboration, teamwork, something to that effect. The bot is typing, so the bot takes a little bit of time to type. But what it's going to then show you are things that you can then click on, and it's going to start telling you the story that we designed for you to have a conversation with. This is a good way to learn. This is a good way to onboard new folks who are running virtual CIEs, as well as just, the bot ignored me. The bot is sleeping. This is a good way for any new person who wants to learn about how do you drive a scenario discussion here. Then they can look at the bot and then actually play around with the tools inside. It will literally, for some reason it's not showing up, but it will literally go through what you need to click on. You need to click on the waffle, you need to click on OneDrive, you need to share this document, all of that scenario stuff. It's not working for me, I don't know why, but there is another document here that basically outlines the entire business scenarios, and we're happy to share this around. This is a very, very big file, so just to give you a sense, I think it goes down to about 300 something pages. You can see 358 pages of contents. This is the storyline. So all 18 business scenarios, we put it right here, and basically it just goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and within each one, it creates a storyline around what you want to do. So for example, let me just scroll to the very, very top, which is about collaborating on documents in real time. So it gives you that storyline to say, hey, Karen Berg, the Vice President of Marketing for Contosa, has been working with the release plan, yada, yada, yada. And literally it says Karen starts the process with OneDrive, launches Edge, clicks the home button, and on it goes, right? So again, this is a great onboarding tool for people who want to learn about the scenarios and for people who want to think about how would Microsoft thinks about providing these type of scenario discussions, storylines with the BDMs. Very quickly, you'll also realize, I know a lot of people have done customer immersion experience before, at least that's, you guys raise your hand when I said that. You will also find that you have a certain way of doing things within CIE. You may like to go to Outlook first, show people how many unread mails, show people how you can do permissions with Outlook, and then from Outlook, you jump to OneDrive, and then jump to SharePoint, whatever it is. You will start to develop that muscle, and you will start to say, oh, this is how I would like to do things. So at that point, this then also becomes a framework, right? For those of you who want to learn about it, great, you can use this. For those of you who have a better way to show what our product is, based on what the scenario challenges that you got, that's also fine, right? It becomes very fluid in that sense. You don't have to always follow everything that we do here, just like you don't have to follow the VDW, all of the contents in there. Use it and think about it as frameworks that we've designed. Sound good? So let's see if that button actually turned blue. So it did turn blue, so I went back. This says connect. If I were to connect, I can connect to multiple RDPs if I want to. Here, I'll just click on it, and you're gonna see it's fairly self-explanatory. If you click connect, you open, and it's gonna ask you prompts. You want to connect? Sure, I'll connect. It's gonna ask you for a password. Password is passadword1. So if I type in passadword1, click enter, it's going to say, do you want to connect? yes, and now it's going to take me into the instance. So it's just like that, and boom. Same experience for the customers, exactly that. So customers will go through the same process, and now imagine the power, right? Imagine what you can do with the customer in this environment and how much you can show them around. And keep in mind also, because it's live for 4 days, what you can do is set it up a day before, customize the CIE if you want to, and then also tell the customer, hey, you have 48 more hours to play around with it. You don't have to worry about it. Everything else at the end of 4 days is gonna get shut down. So you don't have to worry about security, nothing like that. So they get to play around with it some more. Now, because you are in the RDP experience, you can actually copy and paste any of the data that you already have on your desktop in here as well. So if, for instance, you and the customer had talked about how do you visualize data in Power BI, for example, you can even ask the customer, hey, do you have a data file, Excel file, whatever it is that you want to share with me? And I can kind of pre-build some of the things in here so that next week when we do a customer immersion experience, I can actually use your data to showcase how I would be thinking about it in Power BI. All you have to do is literally take that file, copy and paste onto the desktop, and voila, it's right there. I can copy and paste any data I have on my desktop directly here as well if I want to. Again, keep in mind though, 4 days afterwards, everything will be shut down, it will be gone. So what that also means is if you need to do yet another CIE after 4 days, you will have to create another virtual CIE in order to do that and then customize it if you want to. I think demos.microsoft.com gives you maybe 3 months, something like that, a little bit longer, but again, it serves a different purpose and serves a different intent in what we're trying to do. All right, questions? Yes.
Will different personas have different just wondering if different personas will have different access in the system. So for example, if you want to see some of the admin functionalities, do you need to be an IT person or in a specific role to be able to do that?
It depends on which portion of it. So to answer the question, all 20 personas that you see here will have the same access. I would also say if you're engaging with the IT, this might not be the best place to go to, but if you're engaging with the BDMs, it's absolutely fine to let them see all the things in there because chances are they're not gonna know the details of the admin controls and things of that nature. If, however, you do need to get into places where you need to log in as an admin, only you have access to that. The customers do not have access to that part.
But for example, if we want to showcase the autopilot function in Microsoft 365 Business, any persona would be able to showcase that?
For individual functions, once we start getting down to that, let me follow up on that. There are things you can, I know there's certain things you can and cannot do in there. There are also certain things in this experience that it simply won't work because the product doesn't allow it to work. For example, if you're, like my analytics, that requires time to go analyze the data because this is spun up right then and there. There is no data around it. So there are things based on the product itself, it just wouldn't work. Now from a technical standpoint, I don't know which one would work and not, but I can follow up on that. I think there was a hand right here.
Partly answered.
Okay.
Can you use this, because I've never used demos or CIE, so can you use this to sort of show the features like, in enterprise mobility and security and Windows 10, such as the admin side as enrolling devices?
You absolutely can. You absolutely can. So let's talk, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but let's talk about if there's any questions around demos versus CIE. Is there anything that may be on your mind? That typically happens, that becomes a confusing point actually for people who've been using demos. I would say my best advice on this is if you're looking for a immersive experience where the customers can be in the same tenant, this is obviously the better way to go. If you're looking to, say, set up a time with the customer and simply walk them through, so you're doing screen shares, you're showing off our product, then demos may be a better way to go, depending on what it is, right? I think the pros and cons are there. but with either one of them, there's always likely going to be also technical complexity as well. So depending on how comfortable you are sending a tenant to your customer, you might want to also think about that. Questions? Yes?
Can you deploy this on mobile devices? Can you interact with mobile devices?
Can you interact with mobile devices? You absolutely can. You absolutely can. I've actually never tried it before, but I was told that you can. And if you find otherwise, feedback. Let us know. And that's something that I didn't emphasize enough in the previous version. We absolutely need your feedback, right? Whether it's directly here or through the feedback mechanism that we were referring to. The only way to make it better for us, to make the program work better for you guys as well, is through your feedback. Every single thing that I've demonstrated today is because of what you and the sellers and the marketers have provided for us. Literally everything. The UI, it was feedback from them saying that the old UI just simply doesn't work. Value Discovery Workshop, 10 scenarios was just too little. Okay, let's improve. So everything that we do in here has intent, has a purpose. It all comes from the feedback mechanisms that you guys need to provide us on that.
If you can wait.
Can you run scripts against the environment?
Okay. I'm sorry to be running, but since we are recording this so we can make it available, that's why we are.
Can you run scripts against this environment? So if you had like a setup or configuration script to recreate an environment to mirror a customer's environment, is that possible?
Is it possible? Again, once you get to the technical part of it, let me find out. Can we somehow collect these questions, and then let me find out about that as well.
I have done something, but also only with the admin account. Because you get a full tenant with Microsoft 365 E5 when you get a CIE, right? Mm-hmm. It's E5. So you get a tenant that is only live for 4 days. So as long as you use that tenant, you can work with that. It's Windows 10. Yes, I can give you I can get the list, but it's M365 E5. It's Windows 10.
Office
Enterprise, of course.
Yeah, it's our enterprise
Office
SKU.
Pro Plus and EMS. I don't remember exactly what, but we can get all those details.
Okay. We can get you the specs on all of the things that's running right now on this current version, and as we update, we can also give you the updated specs as well. What else?
You will have to run while I write the questions.
Oh, okay. I'm okay with running. I need a little bit of running. Yes, all the way in the back. Sorry.
Is there obviously you said there's got M365 E5 on there at the minute. Is there the option to have different licensing on there?
What would be a license that you would be looking for?
So if you were talking to a customer particularly about Microsoft 365 Business?
That is something that we are, right now, no. Right now there is not a version of that. We are thinking about how do we scale to the other SKUs, such as business. The very quick answer on why that is cost. Is for us to maintain something like this, to keep it alive, basically there's a cost associated with everything that we do here. So therefore, we just need to start to see people using it. The more people who use it, the more then we can justify, hey, maybe we should go and do additional things such as Microsoft 365 Business.
Sure, thank you.
Question over here. Thank you.
Sorry, just to add to that, the business premium SKU specifically with the business apps, it would be really useful to have that.
Okay.
Because there's no other way to be able to go and test them or demo them.
Let me find out a little bit more about, I think, roadmap in general in terms of what we release for virtual CIE. We can find out about that. So let me ask you, how do you currently demonstrate Microsoft product? Where do you guys go? Is it demos typically, if you need to? Yeah. Okay, everybody?
Sandbox. Visual Sandbox.
Okay. So, is this the first time that you've heard of this thing called virtual CIE? Okay, I see a lot of nods. Do you think it might be something beneficial for the customers and for you to run, and maybe not you yourself, but your organization as a whole to run with the customers? Any downsides that already just popping up? I can't, this is not gonna work. Love to hear those as well, because again, those are good feedback that I want to take back.
Only based on what comments about the business apps and the M365 business.
Okay, so the lack of different SKUs that we can then showcase. Okay. Anything else in terms of that's making you cringe that I can't run it with my customers?
Yeah, I say the 4 days is a bit skinny.
Okay.
I guess that can't be extended.
Okay. Let me repeat that. So 4 days. That's a pretty ubiquitous comment that we always hear. Having only 4 days to this virtual CIE seems a little bit skinny. We are exploring ways where we can extend it. Not by much though, we're talking about to 7 days right now. Again, part of it is cost associated with it. One way I would think about it is not going to directly address the question, but I would think about it more as, since you're using this to run a scenario with the BDMs that you just did a value discovery workshop, you really don't need more than that. That was the intent, right? Now, would it be helpful if the customers can continue to play around with it for a month so that they can continue to play with it? Sure, it will be, but it wasn't meant to serve that purpose initially. But we have heard 4 days just seems a little short. So how do we extend that? And that's what we're exploring right now.
Is there any way to capture the data from the session? So, for instance, if you are running through scenarios and people are creating content, is there any way of capturing those as snapshots?
That's a great question. There's not a way right now to capture what you've done directly in the CIE, not from you, not from the customer side, unless they share anything with you.
Because to me, that would be a way of dealing with the 4 days. Is at the end of those 4 days, you can extract what you've done, what you've worked on, even if you've got configuration that the customer is experimenting with.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have to start from scratch every single time.
Yeah, no, that's actually good. My gut right now, no, but my gut feeling is I'm gonna get a lot of pushback on that one because of the value prop that we're also giving to the customers directly is saying everything is secure. We're not capturing anything. We're keeping everything secure. Therefore, if you have any confidential data, you should not worry about Microsoft taking your data and using it, right? I mean, there's always that type of people who are thinking Microsoft is going to take your data and use it for something else. But that is one of the value propositions. Therefore, I think that one might be a little bit more challenging to implement.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
If you've set up a CIE and your customer cancels and it's out of the 4 days, can they set one up again?
You can set as many as you want.
4 days is too short, then they could set up again.
Yep. You can set up as many tenants as you want at different times, different days. We don't limit that. The thing we do limit is per tenant is 4 days. So I can go in and create yet another package of CIE. I can go do that right now, and it's going to last me for 4 days. I can do it again tomorrow. I can go create 21 tenants if I want to. That's all fine. I won't do that, though. Yeah.
You said that you get a full 365 tenant. Can you not just go into that tenant and create trials for business licenses?
So I think the answer is yes, you can. I'm trying to think, is that what we want to say? Can we capture that? Let me come back. I mean, technically, yes, you can, right? Because you are one person. You're going in. I'm logged in as Karen Berg. I technically have access to all of the things that I would just as myself using my device. I just don't know if that's our official pitch that we want to say.